Quality keeps going down and those price tags keep shooting up. I personally believe that we have reached a breaking point when it comes to the car market at large. A breaking point that will serve as a rude awakening for many dealerships. SUV sales within the United States accounted for 58% of all new vehicles sold in 2024. Right now, so many tow truck companies and repo men are backlogged. They're backlogged 4, 5, 6, 7 months because they just can't keep up with it. Banks are trying to get these vehicles back and repossess them, but they can't keep up. Unless you're going to spend over 6 figures in an affordable SUV, it's hard to get excited about it. So many of them feel as though they've lost their identity over the years. They've lost their soul. Dealerships are having to turn away their deliveries. They're having to turn away their allocations at this point because of what you see behind me and all around me. This is their overflow lot, and well, their overflow lot is overflowing. So you tell me, dealerships, was lining your pockets with a $10,000 markup a couple years ago worth losing that customer as a returning customer for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? The answer is no. It feels as though they would rather cut production than cut you a deal. It's pretty sad. This one here, almost 30,000 miles on it, and they still want over the original MSRP. They want $57,000 for it. Hey YouTube, Untamed here. So dealerships across the country really screwed over a lot of SUV buyers throughout the last couple of years. In today's video, I'm gonna provide you with new alarming stats, facts, and figures that paint a clear picture of where we're at currently with SUV sales within the United States and where we're heading throughout the rest of 2025, so stick with me. Now, dealerships were really quick to charge markups on vehicles like this Ford Bronco here. They were always quick to put $5,000, $10,000 over MSRP on really a vehicle that's wildly overpriced right out of the gate. We see it with the Ford Bronco Raptor in particular. Right now we're seeing $20,000 to $29,000 off discounts of MSRP. So right now we see lines upon lines of these new Ford Broncos, even these big body Broncos, not just a Bronco Sport, collecting dust on dealership lots right now. Even with $8,000 to $10,000 off these normal ones here, they can't move this inventory. Dealerships are paying the price for being greedy. Personally, I follow a number of Facebook pages for the Bronco Raptor, and really it wasn't all that long ago that people were celebrating paying MSRP for these. They were celebrating MSRP deals, even $5,000 over MSRP deals. But now, like I mentioned, $20,000 to $29,000 off is a regular occurrence across the nation. Even America's Ford Explorer is wildly overpriced now. Here we have an ST version of it, but get a load of this price tag. Since when has this become our new norm? Just over 63 grand for it. Absolutely absurd. To paint a picture for you, SUV sales within the United States accounted for 58% of all new vehicles sold in 2024. That's up from 56.3% in 2023. Back in 2019, we were just at 48.5% of all vehicles sold were SUVs. Just a few years prior to that, in 2016, we were just over 38%. Kind of wild how quickly that popularity has grown. I truly believe something has got to give, and something has got to give soon. Throughout the last 5 to 6 months, we saw banks truly clamp down on anybody trying to apply for a loan. 1 out of 5 auto loans were declined throughout the last 5 to 6 months. And when you combine that with the fact that people are failing to make payments on their vehicles right now, we're seeing the highest level of auto loan delinquencies, 30-day, 60-day, 90-day delinquencies, the highest that we've seen since the 08-09 recession. Absolutely absurd. And I'm not sure if we can chalk up the Mustang Mach-E to the SUV segment, but it sure looks like one, right? With an MSRP of just over $51,000, it feels extremely overpriced for what you're getting here. There's a reason why 40% of all EV owners right now are upside down on their auto loan. You know, and heaven forbid you need a full-size SUV for your larger family, because this is the price tag that you're going to be paying on the low end. Many of these Ford Expeditions, and this one's a 2024, not uncommon to see too many 2024 sitting on dealership lots. This is on the lower end. Many of these are teetering toward 90 to 95 grand. Now, we talked about it plenty before, but the average new vehicle sale price throughout 2024 was $48,405. The average new SUV sale price was $46,211. So obviously, trucks are really bringing up that average for all vehicles across the board, but really most SUVs are right around that price point. Just skimming through this whole lineup of Ford Explorers here, the average, I would say, is between 58 and 62 grand. Many of these are STs, and they kind of are the higher trimmed examples, but that is what we're working with nowadays. Even for America's Explorer, kind of insane. That average that I just recited to you was really brought down by vehicles like this, right? These are what bring down that average. Many of these here are actually priced in that 35 to 40 grand range. And let's face it, SUV buyers were subjected to the greediest dealership markups throughout the last few years. Whether it was the Kia Telluride, the Toyota 4Runner. Do you remember that RAV4 that was marked up 40 or 50 grand? I think it was out of California. That wouldn't shock you, I'm sure. But someone out there paid $40,000 or $50,000 over MSRP for a Toyota RAV4 Prime. I'll try to find the photo and throw it up on the screen here. It was absolutely insane. So let's have a moment of silence for the person that is spending $2,000 a month in those monthly payments over 60 months for that RAV4. Moment of silence. We talk about it plenty, but I believe the alarming bit is the compounding growth rate of new vehicles available within the US. Here at the start of 2025, we had about just over 3 million brand new vehicles available. That's over 400,000 more than the beginning of 2024, and over 1.4 million more new vehicles compared to the beginning of 2023. That growth rate continues to compound exponentially at this point, and that's going to be a huge problem for dealerships. So believe it or not, I am at a back lot of a dealership here in Colorado. This is a back lot. This is an overflow lot. Obviously fresh new deliveries back here, but even here we're just flooded with new Kia Tellurides, Kia Sportages, some Nissans over here. They're just overflowing with inventory right now. And really they're kind of kicking themselves, right? Because so many dealerships just took advantage of people, charged the markups during the pandemic, during the last few years really, especially on this guy right here. You remember even the Kia Telluride was seeing a $5,000 or a $10,000 markup regularly, which is kind of silly to say out loud, but that's the truth of it. People were clamoring for this vehicle, and that supply certainly wasn't there. And I'll kind of talk out of both sides of my mouth on purpose here. Although I love seeing the consumer be able to go into dealerships and get exceptional deals, huge discounts, incentivized interest rates, although I love that, what I don't love is dealerships are having to turn away their deliveries. They're having to turn away their allocations at this point because of what you see behind me and all around me. This is their overflow lot, and well, their overflow lot is overflowing, and that's not uncommon across the US right now. And when they have to turn away those allocations, what happens next? The manufacturer needs to halt production or slow production, which ultimately leads to layoffs, and nobody wants to see that. It appears so many auto manufacturers put all their chips into this basket, right? Here we have a Nissan Ariya, but look at the price tag. I still feel like this is just absurd for the type of vehicle that you're getting and how much vehicle you're getting. Over 46 grand for this. You tell me, is it worth it? I almost need a higher vantage point. I almost need to get up on those mountains there to show you just how many rows upon rows are sitting on this overflow lot. It's kind of insane. So I challenge you, go to your local dealership, walk the lot, and look in the window stickers of each of them and see how many of them are carryover units from 2024. How many of them are 2024 models? I guarantee you over half of their inventory right now are unsold from 2024. And I would argue that come May, June, July timeframe, dealers are gonna have no choice but to get very creative and get very desperate to move that inventory. And obviously with the change of administration here within the United States, the priority and emphasis on electric vehicles has gone down tremendously. You know, we are kind of re-vectoring focus to oil and gas, right? I mean, that's what President Trump is doing. Whether you like it or not, that's what's happening. So we are gonna have this abundance, and I mean an abundance of EVs just sitting collecting dust on dealership lots. And well, here's just a small indicator of what that looks like. Perhaps I'm just getting old, but 2016 doesn't feel like that long ago. Only 9 years ago, just over 38% of all vehicles sold within the United States, new vehicles sold, were SUVs. And now we're at 58%. That 20% growth in just 9 years, that's astonishing to me. And I really am curious to know what that continued trajectory is going to look like. I mean, they are very popular, but even though they are popular, they're still sitting, collecting dust. That should be a pretty clear indicator of what the car market is doing right now. And this just might be the most affordable vehicle that you can buy brand new right now. Just for kicks, get a load of this window sticker here. Nissan Kicks SV, $27,000. Not too many vehicles are in the $20,000 range nowadays. In 2024, there were 245,000 Nissan Rogues sold. People aren't really going out and buying these because they're wildly impressed with them per se. They're buying them because of that, right? They can actually afford them. And when most vehicles are well over $45,000, $50,000 nowadays, it just begins to make sense financially. The cost of insurance has over doubled in the last 2.5 years. When you combine that, it really has become the silent killer for so many folks. And I want to point out, I'm currently in Colorado, in a city that's very eco-friendly and perhaps one of the most Captain Planet E cities I've been to in a long time, but even they cannot sell all these EVs. Perhaps that's why they're sending so many here. They're hopeful that the population here would be more interested in them. Clearly not the case. And I tell you what, dealerships are quick to lick their chops when they have an opportunity to get their hands on one of these 2023 Toyota 4Runner TRD Pros. Any 5th generation Toyota 4Runner at this point, because that new 6th generation that just came out here in 2025, it's not it, right? It is not that reliable, simplistic, and affordable 4Runner that we have gotten used to. This one here, almost 30,000 miles on it, and they still want over the original MSRP. They want $57,000 for it. Kind of insane. But they likely will sell it because this is the forbidden fruit. You can no longer get a reliable SUV that can go 250,000 miles with minimal headache. These new ones just ain't it. I think most of us can agree that a lot of dealerships are really holding their breath right now, hoping that people will file their taxes, get their tax return, and flock out in droves to come and buy a brand new vehicle with that return as a down deposit on it. And historically speaking, that happens year after year, right? But I don't foresee that happening this year. People are struggling bad right now between their mortgage, the cost of living, the cost of groceries, cost of insurance. Everything has gotten them down pretty bad. So I think they're going to be in for a world of hurt this year because people are not going to be flocking out to come get these things. So 1 out of 4 individuals with an auto loan out right now within the US owes more than what their vehicle is currently worth. They have a negative equity. The national average negative equity within the United States is just over $7,200, meaning they owe $7,200 more than what it's currently worth. And when you look at the price tags of so many of these are Nissan Pathfinders behind me. Many of them are between $41,000 and $49,000. If you were to take out a loan, 60 months or 72 months, you're easily looking at a monthly payment between $700 and $900 per month. Kind of insane. Not to mention, with vehicles like the Nissan Pathfinder, the value will quickly go down right after you drive it off the lot. And that's the case with most vehicles, but especially a vehicle like this. You're easily going to see that depreciation hit quickly soon after buying. So you tell me, are you ready to owe $47,000 on a $30,000 Nissan Pathfinder within a few months? I don't think so. Which is why it's no surprise that we see Americans suffocating right now with all their bills. The first thing to go generally is your auto loan payment. Especially when it's $900 per month, that quickly becomes consuming for most Americans, right? That's why we saw a 23% uptick in the number of repossessions that took place from the beginning of 2024 to the beginning of 2025 here. And that's only getting worse as we teeter deeper into 2025, I would argue. Right now, so many tow truck companies and repo men are backlogged. They're backlogged 4, 5, 6, 7 months because they just can't keep up with it. Banks are trying to get these vehicles back and repossess them, but they can't keep up. And to me, it's kind of sad to see vehicles like this Jeep Wrangler Rubicon behind me. It's a very nice looking vehicle. And it wasn't all that long ago that you could buy a Jeep Wrangler, drive it for a few years, and not lose your rear end come resale time. But Jeep unfortunately fell victim to greed at large. They saw the largest uptick in MSRPs throughout the last 5 years. Really since 2019, a 54% increase in the MSRPs across the board, which is absolutely absurd. Due to their inflated price tags and lackluster quality in and out, Jeep Wranglers are now collecting dust on dealership lots. Go to any Jeep dealership, you'll see lines upon lines of Wranglers and Gladiators sitting unsold. Even with incentivized interest rates attached to them, huge discounts, they're sitting. Their average days on lot is in top 5 of all vehicles across the US right now, with Ram pickup trucks leading the pack. You see it with so many dealerships, right? Whenever there's a brand new, full new redesigned vehicle, whether it's a Toyota Land Cruiser or the GMC Yukon XL or the Denalis that you see behind me, dealerships will try to lick their chops and take advantage of you for $5,000 or $10,000 over that MSRP price tag. This dealership did it here with the new Yukons here that you see behind me. But they have since taken them off because, well, clearly people are not falling victim to that anymore, especially when you look at the current interest rates. 7% being the national average for a new vehicle purchase and 11% on the used vehicle. You know, I personally just cannot fathom taking advantage of someone's excitement like that, right? They're excited for a new vehicle, they've been waiting for it perhaps, and then you go to the dealership to try to buy it for what the manufacturer wants the dealership to actually sell it for, and then you're met with a markup. I couldn't even imagine looking a customer in the face and doing that. Maybe it'll come as no surprise, but even with a 0% interest rate over 60 months, these new Hummer EVs are not selling. Here, they're practically giving them away when it comes to the interest rate, and they're slashing them $20,000 off, but that only brings the price tag down about $80,000, $90,000, because these originally come at $111,000, $108,000 off the shelf. Same goes for these EV Sierras. This one here is an EV Sierra Denali. Look at those wheels, oh my gosh. But with a price tag over $92,000, even with that 0% interest rate over 60 months, people will not buy it. You know, I often think of my time living in Italy. You would never ever see a full-size SUV like these GMC Yukons and Yukon XLs. You would never see a full-size pickup truck out there. Even then, it was pretty rare to see a truck the size of a Toyota Tacoma. They just are not prevalent whatsoever. But that really epitomizes what America is all about. We kind of live in abundance, right? We often live beyond our means. And I think right now, more than ever, it's really showing, and it's proving to our detriment. We are seeing so many people with those 30-day, 60-day, 90-day auto loan delinquencies, the $7,200 owed on credit cards being the national average within the US right now. People just need to stop trying to keep up with the Joneses. Now we just have a lot of dealerships who are truly kicking themselves for taking advantage of you, the consumer, by charging you a markup because times were tough and supply was low, they needed to make ends meet, blah, blah, blah. They took advantage of you. And they're wishing they hadn't have done that because now you see what you see behind me at every single dealership lot. They're over flooded and they can't move this inventory. And while you, the person who paid a markup to a dealership, it is very, very unlikely for you to go back to that dealership and be a returning customer. Your loyalty to that dealership, that went out the window as soon as they put a $10,000 markup on that last vehicle. So they're really wishing they hadn't taken advantage of you because, well, right now you'd be coming back to buy another vehicle, but you're not. So you tell me, dealerships, was lining your pockets with a $10,000 markup a couple of years ago worth losing that customer as a returning customer for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years? The answer is no. For me personally, I would love to see manufacturers clamp down on greedy dealership tactics. If they see or hear or catch wind of any dealership charging a markup, what they need to do is limit their allocations and limit their reallocation rates. Meaning, if a dealership received 15 Tacoma Telluride Pros or 15 4Runner Telluride Pros one year, but they charge markups throughout that year, maybe next year only give them 5. Or give them none next year to really teach them a lesson. Because what are they ultimately doing? By dealerships charging markups, those greedy tactics, that is ultimately ruining brand loyalty. That's why manufacturers need to be concerned about it. They shouldn't just produce a vehicle, kick it to a dealership and call it good. They need to pay attention to see what those dealerships are doing. Don't just look at their bottom lines, right? Look beyond that, look further. That's a nearsighted business model. Let's focus on getting those returning customers and really building upon that existing brand reputation. And the Tesla Model Y was actually among the top selling SUVs throughout 2024 with 372,000 units flying off the shelf. So these did pretty well. And Tesla at large only saw a 1% dip in sales figures throughout the last year. Now, it should come as no surprise to you, but the sedan is dying off within the United States here. Since 2019, we have seen nearly a 10% growth in SUV sales, but nearly a 2.5% drop in sedan sales. And prior to that, the 10 years prior to that, sedans have been steadily declining, like we talked about a little bit previously. When it comes to truck sales, we've seen a little bit of an uptick since 2019. In 2019, trucks accounted for 18.4% of all new vehicles sold. Here in 2024, 20.5%. And when you consider the fact that the average new truck sale price was well over $62,000 just in 2024, it's really no surprise that SUVs are becoming a little bit more popular. Collectively, when it comes to subcompact and compact SUVs, they're much more affordable than your normal average pickup truck nowadays. Over 62 grand. It's no shock that people can't afford these. And I challenge you to walk any dealership lot and go look at their used inventory. You're gonna see just lines upon lines of SUVs, right? This is just what America has become. Of all vehicle manufacturers, Subaru saw the lowest increase of MSRP since 2019 with a 20% uptick, whereas the national average for all vehicle manufacturers is 42%. Here we have a huge lineup of Subaru Foresters. Many of them are 2024 units sitting unsold, but even these quote-unquote affordable examples and options aren't moving. And I know this might be an ugly way to put it, but it feels as though they would rather cut production than cut you a deal. It's pretty sad. And one thing many of you might be interested in hearing is just the other day I helped a buddy of mine buy a brand new Chevy Colorado ZR2 Bison. When I was shopping around Chevy dealership to Chevy dealership, a lot of them weren't actually interested in his trade-in. A lot of them just wanted to sell the Bison. They didn't want his trade-in. And it wasn't like he had a undesirable trade-in either. It was a 2013 Toyota Tacoma TRD Sport. But even then, many dealerships just weren't interested. They didn't want it. That's because they're already overflooded with inventory. They have too much as it is. They're not trying to bring on any more. It's totally a 180 from the pandemic, right? Where many dealerships were actually incentivizing you to trade in your vehicle because they needed that inventory. They needed that supply, but not anymore. Kind of interesting, huh? Really, it's no shock that dealerships are unable to sell brand new examples of full-size SUVs with MSRPs ranging between $70,000 to $100,000 easily, in many cases over $100,000. it's really no surprise that people are gravitating to trying to buy used examples. I mean, we did it. We went and bought a 2020 Ford Expedition Limited Stealth over there. I paid $39,000 for that one there. It's 2020, 5 years old at this point, but only had 49,000 miles on it. The original MSRP on it is over 85,000 if I had bought it brand new. So it's really, I don't blame people for buying used at this point. And those new ones, well, with those price tags, they're just sitting collecting dust. And I think this is a good representation here. Here we have a middle to upper trimmed Chevy Suburban RST. MSRP is just under 80 grand for this one. Here we have a Chevy Tahoe. This is an LT. So kind of a lesser trimmed example comparatively, right? But even still, we're over just about 71 grand. Kind of wild, huh? And you can't help but feel as though so many vehicle manufacturers put their EV lineup all on red, and well, we landed on black, right? Because we just see this, lines upon lines of these EVs and hybridized options just sitting. People don't want this. When you say hybrid and when you say EV, it doesn't scream longevity for a lot of people. And well, that's abundantly clear as you walk any dealership lot. You guys may not agree with me on this, but I feel like so many auto manufacturers that have used to be affordable and reliable and simplistic have tried to shift gears to become luxury segment vehicles. We saw it with Jeep, right? With their Grand Wagoneer, they really flopped hard with overpricing those Grand Wagoneers right out of the gate, right? Many of them are over $100,000. Many of them are just trying to be like BMW. They're trying to be like Mercedes-Benz over there. All these BMW X7s behind me are in the high 90s. And well, seems as though GMC is wanting to play along with this and stuffing every single one of their vehicles to the gills with all the technology, all these creature comforts, and really inflating those price tags tremendously. Like, since when do I have to pay BMW money for that Chevy Suburban over there, or that Chevy Tahoe? Why am I paying BMW money for it? Doesn't feel right. I mean, honestly, it appears as though the top 10, 15% of the wealthiest people within the United States have stopped buying vehicles as well. It's affecting everybody. Really, outside of maybe the top 1%, everybody's kind of clamping down a little bit and really kind of bracing for impact, so it feels, right? I've been to this Mercedes-Benz dealership a few different times in the last month and a half, and I can honestly tell you that the vast majority of the inventory here, well, it was here last few times. They're not moving it. And once upon a time, during the last few years, even these AMG example Mercedes-Benz would fly off the shelf. That's not the case. They sit here for quite some time, and well, to me personally, it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at that kind of price tag. Let's face it, quality keeps going down and those price tags keep shooting up. I personally believe that we have reached a breaking point when it comes to the car market at large. A breaking point that will serve as a rude awakening for many dealerships. What were once going for an $8,000 or $10,000 upcharge over MSRP are now sitting at an $8,000 to $10,000 discount below MSRP and still sitting collecting dust. Well, in this case, snow. And I gotta admit, it is very difficult to get excited. I mean, truly excited about many of the new SUV offerings today. Unless you're gonna spend over 6 figures in affordable SUV, it's hard to get excited about it. So many of them feel as though they've lost their identity over the years. They've lost their soul. So, well, it's really no surprise that people are not coming out and buying these things in droves. And in case you're wondering what a few $1 million worth of Ford Broncos looks like, well, here you go. So Ford just reported a $5.1 billion loss across all of their EVs. Their EV segment suffered that huge loss. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you as a consumer are ultimately paying for it. They're gonna affect the price tags of all their other vehicles just enough to where you're ultimately covering that bill that they suffered throughout 2024. They're also projecting another equal loss of that here in 2025. Ford CEO went on record saying that they're going to try to reshape the next generation of EVs coming from the brand to allow for a larger profit margin, bringing the price tags of these down. But really, what does that mean? The quality of them is going to go down drastically. Because at this point, moving forward, they're no longer getting these large government subsidies and government handouts, tax credits and carbon credits to produce vehicles like this Ford Mustang Mach-e. So they're not going to get those additional incentives to hand out to the consumer to help them eat those losses. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for having a diversified set of vehicle options to choose from: EVs, hybrids, diesels, combustion engines. There needs to be a balance. But when you start cramming one down your throat over all the others and incentivizing it and making the taxpayer pay for it ultimately through these subsidies, that's when it becomes a rub for me. All right, guys, I'll wrap up the video there. As always, I sincerely appreciate you taking the time to tune in these videos. If you find any kind of value in it whatsoever, I do respectfully request that you please consider liking and subscribing. Your support means a ton, and it certainly doesn't go unnoticed. I do firmly believe as we teeter deeper into 2025 here, we will see dealerships crumble to some degree. They have to. They need to get desperate and move this inventory. They can only halt allocations and halt deliveries so much. They need to move the vehicles. They need to move this metal. And to me, in my opinion, I believe that's going to be 10 to 15% below invoice. That's going to be their kind of final straw before the camel's back is broken. So let me know what your thoughts are. Do you think we're going to see that impending car market crash happen sooner than later? If not, let me know why. Thanks for watching.